John Worthington Squim, and this is going to be the report on comments made by a really intelligent lady, full of energy. Um, I think you should watch her video and come to your own conclusions. My remarks are going to be critical on her from certain viewpoints, but not on her energy and her tribal representation, I think, is excellent. I just disagree with a lot of the things she says. So let's just dive right into it. So Don says that we have been successful in pricing carbon. Well, I disagree, Don. I don't think so. I don't think you priced it successfully because you haven't put this emissions from all the shipping into the pie chart. So what you have been successful at doing is concentrating on us and our carbon footprint. But remember, FAWN, poor people ended up being targeted by your aggressiveness. I don't know whether you intended that or not, but that's what happened. The poor people got gouged by this. The people that could afford to pay didn't pay. The poor guy, people on fixed incomes, we paid for the Climate Commitment Act. And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And it never should have happened. They didn't follow the WAC, which says they're supposed to manage the uses of the ocean, shipping, transferring between vessels and offshore oil, gas, transport of other goods and commodities. Well, FAWN, that's this, okay? And not a single port city, which is all under ICLEI control, by the way, every single city that would transport goods and commodities, they're a member of the ICLEI. They're not following the statutes. So, and therefore won't end up in the pie chart. So, no, FAWN, you did not, and were not successful in carbon pricing. You were just successful at hammering poor people with a gas tax and eventually a grocery tax. So later on down the line here, we'll get into that too. So no, FAWN, you didn't accomplish that. Okay, so now she admits that 40 million from us, the working class, due to carbon pricing. So she's excited about it because she knows that the tribe's going to spend some of that money. 10 million set aside for the tribal nations. Okay, now here's where it really doesn't make sense, but she's admitting they have the seats at the decision-making table to basically get money from the poor people, hammer the poor people, and then get it to where the tribes can spend the money they collected from the poor people. And while she's there on her stump, she's pointing to international opportunities. So here we are, India and China, ICLEI, we're sets emerging targets for emerging developing nations such as China and India. So that's the trajectory she's on, is creating opportunities for them at the expense of the poor people, the really poor people who can't afford to pay the gas tax to get her reckoning or her reparations. So FAWN, she joins the World Economic Forum, and she's a head there. She's a talking head there, and they're connected to the ICLEI, World Economic Forum. They're totally interconnected. And so she's there to build and serve a worldwide movement, a government. She's basically international at that point. Her and others, um, her connection is not quite so clear, yet it is. Her problem is that when she agrees to serve them or act as an agent for the globalists, that's when she loses the exemption process, I believe, in my opinion. I think she's a foreign agent. Now, I think that all of them, the ICLEI contractors, they owe us reparations. They owe us $250,000, or they should go to jail. That's our reparations for hammering the poor people with a gas tax. Most of them probably couldn't afford FAWN. So funding the symptoms of climate change. So her position is that we're just funding the climate change problems. And so, no, they are not. And so what she's trying to do is basically use the climate change issue to get lands back. So this is basically treaty renegotiations without actually renegotiating the treaty, which is what they should do. They should just, hey, we want to renegotiate the treaty, but they're not doing that. They're using this formula, which later she calls window dressing, and basically admitting that it's just a flubber and magic bean formula that hammers the poor person so the tribes can get that reparation and that reckoning. And here she's saying and what that means is we're gonna restore and return. Okay, great. We'll come out and say that. Don't accomplish it some sneaky way. And so they gained, that means they're going to get their land back. Again, 25 million from the poor people who really couldn't afford it, FAWN. And they're basically openly planning to consort with the international governments to break a treaty rather than just renegotiate it up front and really get the money from the people who could afford and should be giving you the money, like the college endowments, the corporations that made money off of all the shipping emissions they should have been paying for the impact fees that the poor guy had to pay, poor people had to pay. That's what should have happened. But, she just greenwashing and window dressing. Okay. Thanks a lot, FAWN, for using your opportunity and your moment of power to lie to us, to get money from us, the people who can't afford it, and instead of the people who could afford it, because they're on a global scale and you prefer a global economy. You like the global because you can cut a deal with them to get money from us while you get power to get your land back. It would have been way more honorable, FAWN Sharp, if you would have just said, we want to renegotiate treaty and go to a forum where you could get the money from the people who could afford it. And that would have been, people like me would have been behind you. But when I see greenwashing and window dressing, and I see you looking at things through the reparations lens and the we're going to get our land back lens, I don't have to ask the animal what he wants to do to the doll. The animal wants to burn the doll on Backdraft. I know what FAWN wants to do. She wants to greenwash the public and with window dressing and make the poor person pay for food and gas. So FAWN Sharp, you and your window dressing owe me gas money and food money for your reparations. Okay, here she's saying an opportunity, global, trumpet of Trump, global, get global here, step right up. We got to be a global player, globally, politically, economically, socially, and let's just go back over this. You can be a global player, but you can't team with them to let them off the hook for their emissions, which is far more substantial than our drive to work and our drive to Walmart and drive to the beach. They got a ship with bunker fuel in it, and bunker fuel gets up into the jet stream, and you breathe it before we do here. But yet we're east of you, and you're trying to tell us that the jet stream brings it back to you, and the poor person has to pay for gas, more for gas, while you get polluted by your own global economy. You want to be a global player. So it makes sense that as a global player, that you would want to tax the Jesse James, the poor guy, so that your global partners could rake in the bucks. And they give you that power while they're just raking the bucks. They give you that power to get back what's yours from the people who really can't afford it. And I don't think that has much honor on Sharp. I just don't. Okay, now we're gonna go to the tribes have the least to do with this. Okay, well, where's FAWN at? Here, she's way over here. Look at this. They're way out here. The closest they got to get their stuff from, probably 90%, if not 95% of the stuff the tribe gets is going to come by a ship and a truck. Nobody's economic carbon footprint is bigger than yours. And you're breathing the freshest air than anybody, unless you count the ships. There's no way John Worthington from here, with the jet stream blowing this way, can be getting his emissions to you. It's just impossible. But that must be part of the window dressing and the greenwashing that you're talking about. You can get your reparations. Her day of reckoning. Well, okay, you got your power. You cooked up a deal with the globalists to give you some power, so you can get your day of reckoning. And what did you do? You cut a deal with the biggest polluters on the planet. And you pinned down me with your Jesse James gas taxes and the cost of food. I'm motivated to make this video, trying to be nice about it, trying to explain to you that I didn't appreciate somebody like this using their power incorrectly. Power is great if you know how to use it. I don't think FAWN Sharp knows how to use power. I think she got power. She's abusing it at the cost of the poor people that can't afford to pay. You hammer us, and it's just her day of reckoning. Well, la-ti-da. Great. So when money goes to you, when decision making goes to you, you're just there for your day of reckoning. Global. That's your global gets you your day of reckoning. So no wonder they don't pay their fair share of impact fees and user fees. Their day of reckoning on the poor people, the day of reckoning on the poor people. I encourage you to watch it. There's good stuff in there. If she wasn't using so much window dressing and greenwashing, you know, I'd be a little more positive about it. But from what I see someone who got power and abused it and doesn't really care what happens, as long as she gets her day of reckoning, gets to renegotiate a treaty, basically, and break a treaty. The treaty's already been broken. And there was a better way. There absolutely was a better way. And so they used the Democratic Party. They used the Democratic Party and the globalists. There were more, this is the globalist faction that took over the Kennedy Democrats, where it was just help the poor people like me. They let the globalist people like FAWN Sharp take over and put the Jesse James to the poor people. Big red X on that FAWN. Big red X. And I'm sure if we took a survey, there'd be a big red X from other people too. So there's my FAWN Sharp demonstration. As you can see, I'm not very happy about what FAWN Sharp did with her power once she got it.